is the early edition. I'm Laura Rubenstein here with the amazing Diane Heffman. Hi, Diane.
Hi, Laura. Good to be here. I think I've got my early morning voice on as we are greeting the day for an early Friday start here. And so good to be with you.
It's always great to be with you, and I hope everybody else is happy to be at Friday and take a little breather time for a dose of the feminine, shall we say? Because we always come together for, well, almost every Friday we're here. I pull a card out of the Feminine Power Card deck and we talk about it, and hopefully it brings you something to think about, something to integrate into your life to bring that more nurturing power back into your life. And there is something powerful about nurturing, isn't there, Diane?
Definitely. Definitely. I'm excited to see what the card reveals today.
Okay, I've got it here. I picked it at random totally, and it says two words: cultivate compassion.
Mm.
And that seems like, oh yeah, cool. I'm a really compassionate person, right? And most of us are, or we think we are. But here's a way to practice it, okay, and to really test your compassion and really cultivate it. So practice restraint from disempowering actions. The next time you want to criticize another, say nothing. Allow it to dissipate and accept what's happening.
Hmm. Tell me
Thoughts?
about how that card came about.
Yeah. Well, um, there's seemed to me I had a real big challenge with criticism. I was really good at it, though, really good at it. And that became the
Mm.
challenge. Really good at criticizing myself, really good at criticizing others. And the reason I criticized others was because I was so good at criticizing myself. So
Mm.
the compassion thing has to go both ways, and we have other cards in the deck that talk about self-compassion. So when I think about compassion and cultivating it in the world, if I practice not criticizing out in the world, I'm actually being more compassionate with people. And I'm being more compassionate with myself, although it's really hard sometimes because we have this high standard, right? We don't want to give up our standards and we don't want to let people get away with things. And it's not about that. It's about um, being, allowing people to be who they are. And I don't want to say being empowering. People are already empowered, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to cut them down. I don't want to try to even take their power away. They can only allow me to do it, but I don't even want to put myself in that position where I'm trying to do it. And criticism, as it turns out, if you think about it, is demand, is a demand for obedience. It is not compassionate. And that word brutal honesty is simply brutal,
Mm.
couched in, I'm trying to be nice, but I'm really not. Just saying.
Yeah.
Being a little critical about that. So hopefully it's not hypocritical, but I just want to put out there's something else to think about when we think about compassion and when we think
Mm-hmm.
about and practicing it when we want to be critical.
Right. It's interesting to look about how that would come about in practice, because there's something so important in relationship about being honest and really sharing your truth. The word that came up for me when you were talking about that was intimacy, like into me you see, right? About really speaking your truth and coming from that place. I'm just coming off of an event called Impact, about what is the impact you're having on other people. A lot of people look at, when they are doing some sort of personal growth, it's about, well, how does it affect me and what's it about me? But when you look about what's the impact you're having on other people and what is the impact that you're intending, one of the things I was clear about is that I want people to choose courage and to speak their truth and to see what it is that they're saying, how it's impacting other people. So when you look at this word compassion from the standpoint of, being honest, but how it's landing on other people, how would you utilize that to have difficult conversations?
excellent question. So here's the good news about what I said and practicing restraint when you want to criticize another, because criticism isn't honesty. Okay,
Agreed.
there's a difference between being honest and being critical. Okay, so critical is about your reaction, um, and being. So to be honest, it would be like if I was being more compassionate in my way when I really want to be critical, and you did something, and I want to criticize you for. Your choice of makeup, your whatever, right?
Hmm.
And I think it's like the awfulest color for you.
Hmm.
And you know what? Does that impact my relationship with you? Not really. So it's just my opinion. If I want you to change it, then I should cop to that. I shouldn't say that color doesn't look good on you. That I should say, I'm just having a reaction here. It's all about me, and I like other colors, and just use the word I. Okay.
Hmm.
By the way, and then feel like, how do you feel when you say that? I like other colors. You feel kind of bogus, right? It's like, who cares if I prefer? This person likes this color. Let's be celebratory of that. So it really turns the table on, is it about you or is it really about them? It's really about you. And you got
Right.
to take ownership for your, so, like a lot of times when I'm feeling triggered by someone or critical of someone, I just zip it because I got to process something before I can come from a loving space to be honest. And then I can come back and later say, I was really triggered earlier and I realized there was all this going on with me. I don't really feel good about myself and the colors I choose. And I just want to say you're awesome and I love you. And I had this battle going on in my head and I got it, like I don't even have to say anything because it's not an issue. It's not about you. And thanks for the love and the hearts here. Really appreciate it, Sean. Glad you're here with us, Vicky. There's just when we're critical, we're not being honest, we're demanding obedience, and we're avoiding looking at what's going on here.
Right.
And that's your opportunity and your invitation to be um, self-reflective. So, for
Right.
example, I'll give you another example. Maybe you can think of one too.
Okay.
There was a drip in my bathroom, and
Hmm.
I was like, it was in the tub, and I was like, oh, my husband, he didn't turn off he didn't seal the seal all the way. And I'm like, and he is always doing things like this, and this is really bothering me. And I got to say something. He's got to close we're wasting all this water, right? And I went in there and I realized it was me. I don't know what I thought about it, but it was me. And it was like, he didn't do anything to that. But look how critical I got. And I made this assumption about him and so I am like, what is it in my life that is causing me to have this strong reaction to this thing that I think he did? And I was really stressed. I was on a deadline. I wanted more support in my life and I wasn't getting it. And that
Right.
was the thing to cop to. And it took me self-reflecting on the criticism that I really wanted to spew out so I didn't have to deal with whatever was going on with me. And then I said, you know what? Okay, so if I need support, what is the support I need? Have I even asked for it?
Hmm.
And how can I lovingly ask for it? And is it really, And then I was like, you know what? I could use a hug when I get home, and I could use um, something. I don't remember what it was. And then I was like, you know what? I will make that request. And there's
Right.
no reason to criticize another at when you take the time to be really honest and
Hmm.
self-reflective.
Right. Well, yeah, it feels like that is like a layer of uh, being courageous, right? To really be able to uh, be that self-aware before you say anything. Because it sounds like if you're speaking from, a certain percent, place where it can be critical or land critical for someone else, it's like that's judgmental, right? And so it's like what again, and maybe because I've got this in my head since I just did this training about what's the impact that you're having on someone. And so if you can actually stop yourself and look at, okay, what is the impact that I'm intending, right? Because we can have all these great intentions. However, if we don't actually choose the words and really look at how it is that we want something to land on somebody, we could want something for someone all in the world, but then if we're not having, this is that having the communication, right? And having words that actually land with someone, that actually support, and coming from that place of compassion and choosing that, it's interesting, because I think you can almost have a conversation where you almost can have like a sidebar with yourself, where it's like, okay, what does this conversation actually look like? And you can actually, I think, even speak out loud with the person. And I think that does build some trust and some really some compassion for how things land with them, to say, you know what, I'm having some things come up in my head right now, and these certain words are coming up, and that's not really what I'm intending to say right now, but this is what's true for me right now. And this is the
Yeah,
conversation I really want to have. Like, actually kind of talk that through, about this is the process, because then you're really in it with them, versus this kind of cultivated, like, oh, I'm going to censor everything that I say. But to kind of be able to walk through your process and be able to have a real conversation.
absolutely. There's something magical that can happen when you take full responsibility for your reactions to things. And um, if you are able to say it in a way that you're not putting the blame or the criticism on the other person, and you're really taking ownership of it, I think it does build that bond and intimacy. And you talk about the impact you're really, like if I had criticized him, I'm telling him he's not good enough. And you know what? And that's the intent. It's the last thing I want to happen. But in that moment, that is the intent. You know, it's like, you're not good enough. You didn't. You can't even close the damn, spigot or the faucet, right? And it was
Mm-hmm.
totally not the truth. Like,
Right.
and we get into these reactions, and it has nothing to do with that. We have to go deeper, and to get to a place of compassion. It's really a compassionate thing to do, to manage that, like, okay, what is that impact? People are so sensitive, we all are, and relationships are so sacred. It's not that we have to be on eggshells, but we have to be really clear, like super honest. When we have this reaction and we want to be honest, are we really being honest, or are we just speaking from the being reactive place?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're speaking from the reaction, and you're not copping to that you're speaking from the reaction, and you're talking like it's the truth, it's icky. It's not
Yeah.
it's not where you want to go. You're going to go down a bad, you're not holding it sacred. You're not holding the relationship you have with yourself sacred. You're just trying to get rid of these feelings. And the only way is to spew it out instead of process
Mhm.
it, get clear, really go deeper and deeper. And if you have to talk to a coach, a counselor, a therapist, um, a spiritual guide, whatever, then do that to get
Yeah.
clear. Because it's the more clear you get in the relationship with yourself, then the intimacy really can happen.
Right.
And some
Right.
people need to do it by bickering and getting to it that way. I'm offering an alternative. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Right.
it takes a
Yeah.
little more work and a little less heartache.
Right. It reminds me of some of Alison Armstrong's work, where she talked about having someone who to hold the trash can for you. And it's one of those, like, if you just need to get things out, you're not really trying to solve something, or you've got something that's coming up, or there's a need that you're not asking for, or something that's happening. It's like, if you're just like, hey, can you hold this space, because I'm just going to spew a bunch of things out of myself that has nothing for to do with the other person, so that you can get clear, so you can then have those compassionate conversations where you are really being intentional about how you want it to land, what you're actually trying to communicate, right? Because sometimes, like you said, if some of these things like popcorn up about all these other things you're talking about, the faucet, you know that's not really what it's about, right? It's just about, I mean, yes, that's happening and that's annoying, right?
Right.
But then it's like, that's not the deeper conversation of what you really need, and really being clear about what you need and what other people need around you. So I think that this is a deeper conversation, to have with the people that we love, and to really look at what are some of those deeper conversations that are popping up for us. And I'd love to hearing some of the comments for people about what's the conversation that that you need to have, and how you're going to do it differently. That
Mm,
there may be actually some criticism that's coming up within you, and that's not how you want to communicate it. That's not the message that you want to have land.
yeah.
And I know that I actually have some deeper conversations that I'm going to be having this weekend, and this allows me to kind of hold that space of how I want to go about having them, and how that I want them to land. Because at the end of the day, our close relationships, these are the people we love. These are the people that we want to make sure that we're taking care of in the conversations that we're having.
Yeah. And taking care of them is also taking care of you in the sense of really figuring out what's going on and take it, you may want to have the conversation this weekend type of thing, but if you're not clear on the deeper aspect of it, it's going to be it's it's going to, you know, it may be a little harder and it may not be the right time. So sometimes we have to give ourselves the space and time, and we might say, "Hey, I'm processing something that I'm going to share with you, and I'm not quite clear on it, but it has to do with what's going on here, and I don't have words yet for it." Like
Mm,
you can cough to it. This is like so honest and so honest without the drama of having to um, make somebody else perform a different way. And thank you, Sean, for your hearts and acknowledgement of our positivity on life. And yes, we really want you to have great relationships. And this is about compassion is about holding those relationships sacred. Like what you putting into this space right now of this relationship that we're calling this interaction, is it where you want it to go? Is this going to take it? So yeah, that impact is like think 3 steps ahead, and not like logically, but emotionally. If you put this out there, what's the emotional result going to be? Like
mhm.
coming from this energy of like confusion, anger, whatever, the intent behind those is it could be way back here, eventually resolving it, but it's going to be messy. And is that when you mess something up, you can clean it up. There's always a residue. So, and you have to work really hard. So, how can you bring it really cleanly to the sacred space and honor it and have it be something really magical for both of you, not just for getting it, if you need the trash can, I love that. Go get someone to hold the trash can and then if you still got trash, like keep with it, because that's the goal. That's your soul trying to give you a message. And until you're clear, it's going to be really hard to communicate intimately.
Right, right. And I think also, what we're saying here is that we're not trying to sugarcoat, deep conversations that need to happen, and people speaking their
Opposite.
truth and being what that is. It's looking at it from the bigger, perspective of, where do you ultimately want to go with this? And you may not know, but when you have the conversation where you're talking to someone about, this is what's coming up for me, this is what's happening, this is what I want to have this conversation with, and this is just being real in it, but being aware of that impact, and being compassionate from that perspective of how you are impacting other people. I think it's an important way to be conscious of when you're talking with people.
Yeah. And this is something that we can revisit in a future live stream here on Facebook, because it's deep, and we may need to sit with this for a little bit, Diane, and everybody watching and who watches this replay. I invite you to sit with this and think and see how it comes up in your life, like when you
Right,
react to something and when you want to criticize versus if you take a moment and a pause and maybe a few moments and to think
right.
where it is and to set that intention clearly, and to know where you're coming from with the criticism and then go deeper with it. Fun.
Right, right. Well, and also, in the spirit of the co-creation that we're having here, we'd love to hear some of the comments around, what's popping up for you around this. Like, is what are the kind of conversations that you've had in the past that are popping up, and how do you want to do them differently? And so, we'd love to have some ideas of how what rabbit hole would you like to go down with this conversation to really explore it, and so that we can all be more compassionate in our conversations, and really be deeper in that conversation of how we're impacting other people, and how we can really have honest conversations, but with that bigger lens on.
Yeah. And if there are more questions that came up from this than answers, we'd love your questions too. And thank you, Mina Grace. This is, she's just said yes. And so thanks for being here, and thanks for the hearts, Sean. And um, it's just so precious, the relationship. So that's what I want to leave people with. Um, Treat your relationships like a newborn baby. You don't want to drop them on the floor. Okay.
And with that, have
Make
a
it a
great
great
weekend.
day. Make it a great day. And thank you, Sean. Thank you, Mina Grace. And we will be back next week with another Feminine Fridays and a Feminine Power card. And until then, we're here for you on Facebook. And mwah.
Bye bye.
Bye.